for today's discussion is consists of half an hour of questions from Dominique and myself, followed by half an hour of questions from you, the viewers. So please ask your questions using the Q&A feature, and feel free to upvote, to use this upvote function to put your favorite questions at the top of the list. We will do our best to answer all the questions, time permitting. So I'd like to start by telling you a little bit about our organizations. The Canada Foundation for Innovation, or CFI, is a nonprofit funding organization, and we support research infrastructure. So that is the labs, the facilities, the instruments that researchers need to carry out their work. SSHRC is one of Canada's 3 federal funding agencies. It supports research in the field of social sciences and humanities, whereas the other 2 support sciences and natural sciences and engineering and health. So I will now turn it over to my co-host, Dr. Dominique Bérubé.
Okay, unmute. Thank you, Claire. I'm really honored to participate in today's session. Really very much looking forward to our conversation today. So as Claire mentioned, I serve as the Vice President Research at SSHRC. I also oversee strategic direction and the delivery of multi-sectoral and interdisciplinary programs across the different agencies and council. So, and that of course includes the Canada Research Chair Program, as well as the Canada Excellence Research Chair Programs. And our 2 panelists today are prominent representative of research excellence and of those 2 programs. So each year for the Canada Research Chair Program, we announce roughly $300 million in federal support for those new and renewed chairs. And for 2 decades, we've been partnering with CFI to support also the infrastructure of these chairs. And for the Canada Excellence Research Chair Programs, we award, in fact, universities up to $10 million over 7 years to attract global talent to Canada. There is approximately 20 to 25 of those chairs across Canada. So as you can see, I'm really fortunate to introduce you 2 of these chairholders today. To start with, Dr. Helen Zhang is the Canada Research Chair in Coastal Environmental Engineering at Memorial University of Newfoundland. Welcome, Helen. And as I was saying to her previously, I feel connected because I did my PhD in environmental sciences, but I was a metallurgical engineer also. So much of what she does is of a primary interest. And also, of course, our second panelist, Dr. Irina Rish, the Canada Excellence Research Chair in Autonomous Artificial Intelligence from Université de Montréal, where I worked 6 years ago. So really welcome to you too. Bienvenue. And to start the conversation, I will pass it back to Claire at this point. Claire.
Thank you, Dominique. So my first question is for our viewers who might not be familiar with the work of our guests today. So it's a question for both our guests to answer, but I'll start with you, Helen. You're a professor in the Department of Civil Engineering at Memorial University of Newfoundland, and your research focuses on coastal environment and issues such as oil spills and contaminated site remediation. But it includes also something that very interesting that I would like you to tell us more about is your studies of bacteria that eat oil. So tell us more about your research and how you got into that field of inquiry.
Okay, thank you, Clara. Thanks CFI and SSHRC for hosting this great event. I'm incredibly honored to be here today. My CRC research program is coastal environmental engineering with a focus on the bio-based oil pollution control. My team at Memorial University have screened and isolated over 150 types of special bacterial strains from our Atlantic Ocean. And those strains can eat oil, so which means they use oil as the carbon source to grow themselves. And at the same time, they can generate special types of products. We call them biosurfactants. So we have produced such biosurfactant, purify them, and obtain their structural information in lab. And we can then, based on them, to generate a series of oil treating agents. For example, we generate biodispersant and bioholders for oil spill response in open seawater, bioemulsifiers for remediation of oil contaminant coastal site, and biodemulsifiers for oil water separation during wastewater treatment. We have also developed methods to use fishery waste as the raw material for such a production. It is ways to convert waste to the valuable products. So besides the bioproducts, we also investigate the associated oil mitigation technologies, the system mechanisms, and the oil monitoring methodology. So basically, the overall philosophy is we try to integrate microbiology, chemistry with engineering knowledge to generate eco-friendly technologies and the promising products to solve the environmental problems. So in terms of inspiration, I think what inspired me to choose environmental science and engineering as my major during my undergrad study is basically my interest in exploring the nature of environment from childhood. Though at that time, I know very little about this major. But after years of systematic training, I know what the major means. I know how interesting this journey is. And then I become increasingly passionate about the field. And after working in the field for years, the research breakthroughs and the achievement of my students make me feel very proud of my career. And all these rewards then become the additional driving force for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Helen. So turning to you, Irina, you're a professor in the Department of Computer Systems and Operation Research at the Université de Montréal, and a core member of MILA. MILA is a research institute on artificial intelligence. So your research focus on artificial intelligence that is neuroscience inspired and on machine learning. So please tell us a bit more about that, and also, as I asked before to Helen, how you got into this field.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for inviting me. It's a really exciting event, and I'm happy to be a part of that. And artificial intelligence is truly an exciting field. So I would like to share some aspects that I find particularly kind of promising. As to your question, actually, how I got into that field, I think the story goes way back to my childhood, perhaps, when I actually started participating in so-called mathematics Olympiads back in school. And sometimes, since the problems were quite complicated, not the usual like school problems, you start wondering how your brain actually goes about problem solving and how to improve that. And actually, it made me think not just about how brain can do it, but later on when I saw some books about how machines think, it was kind of introduction to artificial intelligence. And that really was, to me, like a revelation. So I really would like to understand thinking process, problem solving in both artificial and natural systems, with the goal not just to maybe recreate this type of capabilities, but also help us to improve our thinking abilities. So to me, artificial intelligence was always not only about artificial, but also about augmented. So my AI stands more for augmented intelligence. But going forward, that I think that interest kind of drove me to computer science program back in my undergrad and later on grad school with a focus on AI, and also at this intersection with neuroscience and brain imaging and using AI for analyzing brain imaging data to detect patterns of different mental conditions, while at the same time looking into inspirations from neuroscience, hopefully to improve AI algorithms. And that kind of line of research was going on for years when I was back at IBM T.J. Watson Research Center in Westchester County, New York. And we had kind of lots of exploration in the field of neuroscience with AI applications and vice versa. So recently, like in 2019, I moved to Montreal to start as a professor at University of Montreal and at MILA, which is, I think, the largest academic center focusing on artificial intelligence, machine learning, and deep learning, particularly, led by Yoshua Bengio. I don't think I need to introduce who Yoshua is, but yeah, he's one of the three Turing Award winners, together with Jan LeCun and Jeff Hinton. Anyway, so this is really kind of the largest concentration of young minds focused on the problem of how we solve AI, how we can build artificial thinking agents that can match our capabilities, and while doing so, how we better understand our own thinking capabilities. So that's kind of, I think, roughly my journey compressed in a few minutes from a few decades. And my current focus here is on trying to advance artificial intelligence models and algorithms towards so-called continual lifelong learning, because this is one of the open problems in modern AI. Despite the amazing advances AI achieved so far, from beating human champions in Go or generating paintings that were sold at some auctions at New York City using GANs, or the most recent GPT-3 system that has like amazing capabilities of generating text, writing essays, answering questions. Still, those systems have limitations in terms of they are not able to do what just a regular human can do. Keep learning, very different tasks, learn different languages, learn how to paint, learn how to, I don't know, read and write and do various tasks, maybe not at absolutely superhuman level, but at least being versatile. And this property of being versatile is not something that AI systems are good at right now. And that's what we're trying to tackle, I would say.
Okay, thank you, Irina. And let me just go back to one thing that you just said, because you mentioned that you moved from IBM to MILA last year, and you spent, in fact, 20 years, I think more than 20 years at IBM and in the private sector. And in your field of expertise, we usually see the jump in the other way, you know, people from academia being stolen to work for the biggest firms. So what made you decide to go back to academia?
Yeah, it's a good question, and I do get it a lot indeed, because it goes in the opposite direction. Well, first of all, part of the research I'm doing is focused on out of distribution generalization. So I like to go out of distribution. Joke. That's why they move in the opposite direction. But to be more serious, yeah, over the past decades in IBM, I learned a lot. I really had amazing collaborations, which I continue still. So the fact that I moved didn't change that. But I also was always kind of interested in teaching, in supervising students. So on a side, I would sometimes teach with my colleagues at Columbia University. I really loved supervising interns at IBM and kind of having this more interaction with students and kind of younger researchers. That's a part that is really attractive in academia, and that was one part of what made me make the decision. And of course, joining MILA which, as I said, is pretty much world's largest academic organization focused on AI, machine learning, deep learning. Those factors were, I think, the key in making this decision. Plus, as I mentioned, I didn't really completely leave IBM, and I closely collaborate with my previous colleagues. And in a sense, my ultimate goal would be really to tighten collaboration between MILA, University of Montreal, and IBM research.
Yeah, you already understand the private sector, which is definitely an advantage as compared to other professors sometimes. And Helen, you know, it's yourself, you come from China, and now you're at Memorial University. And then for our fellow American, I don't know if they know where Memorial University is, but when we say in Canada, from coast to coast, it's the coast. It's the eastern coast. It's really to the eastern part. So can you just tell us a bit about the path that brought you to China, to Memorial, and to Canada?
Okay, thank you, Dominique, for the great question. I came to Canada to pursue my PhD degree, and then was awarded an insert postdoc fellowship. And after being a postdoc fellow, I joined Memorial University, and then became a Canada Research Chair. It seems kind of a smooth career path, but it was actually associated with various challenges. For example, when I started the faculty position, my daughter was 1 year old. And like many other female earlier career researchers, I faced challenges in the first few years with seeking funds, developing research program and team, and keeping a high quality of teaching, surveys, and research productivities, and meanwhile being a new mom. So it was truly tough times, but there's always something you can gain from those very tough moments, which has helped me to learn to be more efficient, like productive, self-motivated, and self-regulated, which I believe are essential to my career development. And there are actually many warm moments in those tough days. So I kept receiving inspirations and support from my families and friends. And I also very much appreciate the encouragement from my mentors and senior colleagues, role models, and from the system that Canada gives to help the early career researchers. I got lots of very valuable tips on improving the teaching and like writing research proposals and establishing leadership. And my senior colleagues granted me many opportunities in these years. And each time they did so, they said, "Hey, Helen, no, you have one more line on your CV." No. So I think all these are essential for shaping my career. And I like to emphasize that at Memorial, we indeed has very warm working environment. And in St. John's, where we're located, we have like beautiful scenes. We have ocean landscape. So welcome to visit us at any time. Thank you.
And I guess the coastal environment is important for you, given your expertise. That's a good reason. Claire, it's your turn.
Yes, continuing, Helen, you mentioned how proud you are of your students. And I was wondering, as a woman in science, how have you been able to help women pursuing a career in the ones that are choosing to pursue a career in science? How have you been able to help them excel? And also another aspect of the question is, what obstacles do you see them continuing to face?
Okay, thank you, Clara. I understand that there are many difficulties that we face in the male-dominated occupations. For example, the imposter syndromes that bothers lots of us. So I always encourage the girls. They really need encouragement. And some other gender-based stereotypes. As a professor, I'm grateful that I have many opportunities to influence girls enjoying like STEM, to be involved in the field and help to break the barriers. For example, every summer, I accept applications from local high school girls who are interested in working at my lab to gain some scientific experience, and a program named WISE-NL, so Women in Science and Engineering in Newfoundland and Labrador. I have a strong driving force to do so, and they means a lot to me due to my own experience. Years ago, I worked as an environmental engineer in China after my master's study, and I didn't have a sight on a PhD. And then one day, I got a surprise call from Canada. It was from my PhD supervisor. He said, Helen, my collaborators in China recommended you to me, and I feel your record is impressive. So please consider pursuing a PhD degree, and I will grant you a full scholarship. So it was actually this call made me to step up my comfort zone and quit my job and came to Canada. So this call basically changed the direction of my life. And then many years later, when I worked at Memorial University, one day I saw a CV with a transcript from a girl abroad. And her CV was not prepared for a PhD application, and not even for the application to our faculty. But after reading her file, I did exactly the same thing as my PhD supervisor. So eventually, this girl joined my team as a PhD student. She published over 10 very good quality journal papers during her study, received over 10 awards, including the Governor's General Gold Medal and NSET postdoc fellowship. And I believe she will become an emerging researcher in the field. So as a professor, like the happiest moment, I'm not just associated with the exciting discoveries. So not just the discoveries, but with the growth of your students. So this is why we pass the science on to, like the way we pass the science to the future generations. And this is also the inheritance in science world, I believe. Thank you.
Thank you. And Irina, you have a teenage daughter. So if she chooses to do a career in science, do you have good advice for her?
Yeah, that's a very timely question indeed, because we have those discussions with her as she's currently thinking about future steps and going to SSHRC and choosing her path. And what I'm trying to tell her, not just to girls, but also, well, essentially girls and boys, and even my students, you just need to decide what you really would like to do and try to keep the possibly negative voices, this imposter type of syndrome thing and so on. Try to calm it down. It shouldn't be deciding for you. What should be the decisive voice in your head is what you really feel like doing, and then you just stick to it, and one day at a time you'll move in that direction. So basically I'm just trying to encourage her, kind of listen better to what is that she really would like to do, and try to go along with this direction. There will be lots of possible obstacles that sometimes mainly in our heads. So it's not necessarily just what we think the stereotypes around us, it's stereotypes in our own mind. And that's the main kind of enemy to handle. So once you manage to calm down the voices of kind of preventing you from fulfilling your dream, it doesn't really matter what stereotypes around you are. So I'm just trying to tell her to really, really focus on the path she would like to pursue and just try to follow it. Plus, of course, I think it's very important not to do it alone, to have a network of friends or mentors who can keep reminding you that you are doing the right thing. that you shouldn't hesitate, you shouldn't be afraid, you should keep going. So hopefully it will help.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think I'll continue on that conversation with Helen, because it was really great that you mentioned that it's a phone call that got you to Canada, because I was about to ask you, when you described your path, you said, oh yeah, I went to do a PhD in Canada. Yeah, but why? And it's a phone call. So it does illustrate the importance of mentorship. And the quality of the mentorship and how people think about mentorship, so that it's an inclusive environment and everybody has a chance. But in the same other things that we talk about in terms of experience for young female students is also about being hands-on and being having the opportunity to experiment. And you did talk about and mention your participation into the WISE program. And can you just tell us a bit how important you think it is for these high school students to be able to experience what is a lab?
Okay, thank you, Dominique. Yeah, I do believe we need such programs to help us to close the STEM gap by attracting and retaining the girls and women into the field. Actually, the name of that program is WISE SSEP. So this is Student Summer Employment Program. Each summer, a high school girl can choose a lab within our campus to conduct a 7-week lab work. And there are also few buddy days. So on that days, the girl can visit other girls' lab to know the nature of more STEM field. So besides WISE, actually, my lab also trained girls based on other programs like the Science Without Borders Scholarship Program and the UNSERC Undergraduate Student Research Award Program. So I always told those girls, so if you like STEM, take any opportunities in your life to obtain the knowledge and skills and follow your heart. Don't hesitate because of your gender. And after the training, some girls I know they eventually choose engineering as for undergrad studies and the environmental engineering for graduate studies. And just very recently, I got an email from Brazil. And the girl said, Dr. Zhang, remember one summer I ever worked in your lab. I had a very enjoyable time. So, and I decided to pursue a master's degree. Do you have a position for me? So when reading such an email as a mentor, I should say that was my happy moment.
Oh, that's great. And Irina, maybe it's you did mention that you mentored some students at IBM, and you wish to continue that relationship also with IBM. So, what do you think? What more could we do and could be done to better support girls and interested in science in that environment?
Yeah, indeed. Back at IBM, we used to have sometimes interns from high school, including girls, and it was actually a very rewarding experience. My last intern, we managed to even publish a short paper. She was extremely happy, for a high schooler to have a paper in the conference about analysis of functional MRI. And in general, what I've noticed, I think the earlier kids gets exposed to fascinating topics in STEM, the more likely they are actually to get genuinely interested in that. So various after-school programs or camps, I think this is a really great way to get kids, both boys and girls especially, to get truly interested and just show them different opportunities. Because otherwise, if they only get to high school, and that's the time when they start really thinking what could be interesting direction to pursue, I mean, it's good, but I think it can start much earlier. Because I think I was lucky to be exposed to various extracurricular activities, and including those math Olympiads and physics, and also in computer science and robotics. And I think if we have more of that in schools, and not just high schools, but middle schools, even elementary, more camps, more classes like that, perhaps at universities we can organize, I mean, it's being done already, but I think the more the merrier. Yeah, just trying to expose kids as early as possible to various interesting directions in STEM. I think that's the best thing to do, to get them truly into this direction as early as possible.
Yeah, probably my dad was an engineer, and he kept buying me some electrical sets and crystal growing sets, and I remember. Yeah, thank you so much.
I think it's really the question of the more interesting things you're exposed to, the richer your experience is as a kid, the more likely you to probably develop interest in those directions, and then you just go on.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
Thank you. So maybe two final questions from Dominique and I before we take questions from participants. So let me start, and it's a question for both of you, but I will start with Helen. So where do you see yourself and your research field in 10 years from now?
Oh, 10 years? Okay, thank you. I think this is a very interesting question. I believe I will still in academia after 10 years, being a happy researcher in lab, and being a very proud educator to train the next generation of researchers and foresee their successes. In terms of my field, I think the growth of the human society is always associated with many exciting achievements and changes, meanwhile with the generation of unexpected contaminants. So as an environmental researcher, I think I very much enjoy the investigation on their occurrence, like transportation, fate, environmental impact, and mitigation. So this is basically an endless job.
Yes, maybe integrating some artificial intelligence into your work. Maybe you discuss that with Irina after this. Your turn, Irina, to answer the question.
Yeah, I mean, it is indeed a very interesting question, because 10 years seem to be like a really too far in the future. On the other hand, I mean, we know how the time goes by. So I think I probably will be in academia, and the group will probably keep expanding, and hopefully, well, it's a half joke, but maybe by the time we'll solve AGI, artificial general intelligence, or at least, well, to be realistic, we will advance it considerably. And given the current speed of advances, I mean, it might be close to sci-fi in a sense, but I think we will, regarding continual lifelong learning, will be definitely much closer to what people can do in their normal, regular lives. The artificial agents will be able to do this kind of learning of multiple tasks, very different kind of things. And essentially, I also hope that that we can focus on making artificial intelligence, as I mentioned, not just more advanced, but more useful. And the idea of augmented intelligence rather than just artificial is something that I really hope is a direction where it will be going. So there is lots of room for AI in kind of helping people in various aspects of life, and hopefully I'll kind of go into that direction more and more. I was working on the intersection of AI and medical fields, for example, AI in brain imaging for detecting and predicting, say, different mental states or mental disorders, using AI for various type of personal assistance that not only help people do their business and scheduling and so on, but potentially can be also their, I don't know, like personal trainers, helping them improve mental states, basically extending human functionality, the functionality of our brain with help of AI to improve our memory, improve our mood, improve our productivity, and basically indeed augment our capabilities with those of AI. So that's a bit of a futuristic maybe vision,
Yeah.
but on the other hand, it's already happening. There is lots of research by my colleagues and other groups and even companies focused on, for example, using AI for a dialogue for therapeutic purposes, like not necessarily replacing by any means human therapists, but helping to bridge the gap between the demand, for example, for therapy that we all probably really well aware of, and supply of kind of human doctors who can indeed see the patients, because obviously, especially with pandemics, the need for kind of mental health services for therapy keeps increasing, and it's practically impossible for even the best doctor to see all the patients on a daily basis. But various systems being developed for the dialogue, especially focused on the mental health, can potentially at least partially bridge this gap. And it's just one example where hopefully having AI in the loop can, as I said, help us augment our, not just intelligence, but our mental well-being. And I'm kind of really looking forward for advances in this direction. So to go back to your question, I think that I will still work in academia, enjoy giving lectures and doing research with my group, and hopefully focus more on kind of applications of artificial intelligence to improve the life of humans, essentially.
We're going to follow very closely your research.
Oh, wow, now we'll have to really live up to those expectations.
Claire, if you don't mind, instead of having my question, I think I'm going to go to the Q&A and the question that I see, because there are quite a few questions, and I see one that brings us back directly to the thematic of the panel here, that was about the challenges for women in STEM. And there's one question from an anonymous attendee that was for Helen, but I'm pretty sure Irina has also a consideration. And she does mention, the attendee mentions that the inequities that are, I guess, the systemic barriers that we face in the research ecosystem to be able to advance at the same rate as our male counterparts. For example, the lack of publishing papers, of course, when we go on a maternity leave. I've got 2 kids, you've got kids, we know what it is. So do you have some good suggestions for us, the agencies, and for your institutions and universities about what could we do better to overcome and to make the playing field more even for everyone? Helen?
Okay, thanks for this very important question, I should say. In my opinion, it is not just the maternity leave itself that may affect the performance and productivity. Motherhood actually means drastic change in your academic life, and we need to quickly upgrade our system with a higher multiple tasking capacity and efficiency, and this can be quite challenging. So I'm quite fortunate that I had a supportive environment to help me to face the challenges. However, I observed that systematically women are still directed to work-life balance with more childcare and domestic responsibilities than men. So, of course, women need to overcome the challenges through maintaining a high level of motivation, like self-regulation and diligence. However, I think having a very good supporting system is very important for us. And I think we can do more at the organizational levels and the systematical level to facilitate the women to overcome those challenges. For example, through generating the favorable policies, so we can engage ourselves in serving those committees, try to take some administrative roles to lead to certain types of, very supportive system for us. And also, I feel that the increasing the public awareness through education is also very important. Therefore, like I very much, the CIFI and SSHRC can organize such a great event. I think all this is very meaningful.
Thank you. Thank you. Irina, do you have some thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely big and tough questions. A question about the work-life balance, family versus work, and it's clearly the case that women are much more involved in various things related to family, while I mean, it not necessarily have to follow that stereotype, but it's been like that, and it's not something that probably gonna go away, and we don't want it to go away. We do want to spend a lot of time with our kids and with the family, and it's high priority. So in a sense, the question of balance, I think I would agree with Helen that indeed more help and like a wider support network, that's always something that can help with various problems. So basically, I really like the fact that, for example, back in IBM, we had a daycare essentially on premises. It was very convenient. When my son was born, I was able to pretty much visit him like every hour and go back to work. So that was great. So I didn't have to really stay home longer than needed, and yet I was able to do both work, meet with my colleagues, and be with him quite frequently. So I think more of that definitely would help kind of younger mothers. And the same thing perhaps with, say, older kids, and back to this extracurricular activities about science. If we also had this maybe extended day or something at work, also enriching activities would be provided to the kids, that would make us both feel that, well, kids are spending their time doing interesting things, and we can focus on work, and we can also visit them if they are kind of if the classes are located nearby. So I think more of such kind of initiatives, they would definitely help working mothers in general, and working mothers in academia specifically.
Well, it's true that during the pandemic, we're really close to our kids. We could be a bit further.
Yeah. So I mean, it's you want to be close, but you also want to have time to focus. Yeah.
Claire, do you want to pick one?
Yeah. So that, yeah. And unfortunately, we cannot. We cannot have those classes or network and so on because of the distancing. Yeah. So now I know it's particularly tough, but well, the schools are currently open, so at least I know it's a bit controversial and there are discussions about that, but I think for the mental health of kids and parents, it's a good idea to keep schools open with all possible precaution measures, but try to keep them open if we can. Yeah.
Claire?
There is a question in the Q&A that caught my eye because both our guests have been international students. So how an international student can deal with difference in teaching styles and learning requirements while maintaining excellence and motivation?
Good question.
Very good question.
Well, as a former international student myself, it was quite a difference between, I would say, approaches back in Russia, where I moved from. I did my undergrad degree there. I moved to US, to California. And I think, again, being very kind of proactive and trying to, when you feel that there is some disconnect or you don't understand something or you're not sure, you need to talk to your professors, you need to talk to your fellow students, you need to kind of keep in touch and not to isolate yourself, because sometimes the easiest thing is to ask and discuss and maybe explain your difficulties. And I'm pretty sure that professors will be very willing to help. Yeah, but it's important to ask for help, to ask for explanations, to connect. Yeah, so that's, I think, at least one suggestion that I can give, and that really helped me to clarify multiple kind of misunderstandings or uncertainty that I was facing coming from different type of educational system.
Yeah, I agree with Irina on this point. I feel that, like both of us are former like international students, so we do like face certain types of challenges due to the different like language barriers or the like difference in the educational system. My normal way to handle this is, we try to be open to trying new things, to try to adapt to the system, to try to understand the system. And the fun part of like learning a different country and different education system is you have more chance to learn new things, and learning them will help you to build like the bridge and opens the door to the like all types of difference, including the cultural differences. And you can gain the very unique experience in different like such environment, which will help you to like broaden your career vision.
Thank you. Can I maybe propose another question? I like that one. It has a lot of punch. So it says, what are the things you feel worth fighting for and advocating for yourself in your career? A lot of time it is a hard call, particularly when you are like the person is at the start of the career.
Yeah, this is a very good question. I think, we definitely, so we have certain types of moments, we feel that we definitely need to speak up. Normally, if we experience or observe the like gender-related, like unfair treatment, for example, normally we will like try to fight for that, because we're not like speaking up just for ourselves, but for the growth of our next generations. So we do have certain types of observations or experience, but I think we can handle it in a very positive way. Yeah.
Thank you. Irina, some thoughts?
Well, yeah, I agree that indeed sometimes, especially for girls, I guess, and women, it's harder to speak up and potentially voice opinion that not everybody might like. Mm-hmm. And of course, you really need to kind of work on that sometimes, because I guess as women, we usually raised to be nice to people and try to kind of not to hurt anyone and be kind of supportive. And it's not always indeed easy to figure out how to best kind of phrase your criticism or stand up for something. And I believe there are very good ways of doing that, and it doesn't have to be contradictory, controversial, or it doesn't have to be really a fight. I'm actually a big fan of nonviolent communication books. So you can actually enter very difficult situations and confrontations, and people may have very opposite opinions. I mean, I'm not saying I'm really good at that. I'm still learning, but it is possible, even with quite large distance between opinions initially, try to convince or at least express your point of view while being completely polite and compassionate. And in those sometimes heated arguments, you try to keep the focus on the other person as a person, while at the same time trying to argue for particular kind of arguments that you're trying to make. So, and I think when you separate like the logical argument from personal, usually people respond to that well, because they understand that it's not personal attack. It's truly attempt to get to the truth, to clarify something. But I know that it's not always easy, and it's always associated with lots of anxiety, especially, as I mentioned, culturally, we usually do not want to hurt anyone. Yeah. And you don't have to hurt. That's why you need to separate. It's actually to get to the truth, to make the point. But I know that's kind of a tricky skill to learn. And perhaps it should be taught even more formally about how to have good scientific and other type of discussions while respecting a person and not getting into potential confrontations. But yeah, I know it's a tough subject, but I think it's really important, especially for women, to get better in this sense sometimes.
Yeah, I agree, and I feel that the most important thing is we need to keep a higher level of professionalism. I think this is the key part of our job. Yeah.
I find it really interesting because one of the things that we hear a lot about women and men, in the professional environment is the way they interact with each other. And the sex, when you have some categories of behaviors, and you will say that women are too shrill and hysterical and men are too, and it's all of that communication that needs to happen and to have those professional disagreements, but to maintain that communication flowing. So that's definitely something that everybody needs to learn on both sides in terms of exchanges. So that's really
going against the stereotype, it's not necessarily that sometimes women are more hysterical.
No, they're not.
And so on and so forth. But it doesn't matter again. So what I'm trying to say, it's more important problem than gender related. It's a problem of learning how to communicate better, no matter what your gender is.
Yeah, totally. Claire, do we have time for a last one, or are we moving to the end?
I'm gonna ask a last one to Helen, if I may.
Because you want to, okay.
Yes, that's right, because we've touched upon the professional life and the family life balance. So the question is that, women often have, inequity, like in their career path, like they don't progress as quickly as their male counterpart. For example, maybe the lack of publishing papers during a maternity leave. So what are the other challenges that are presenting themselves, and how we can overcome them?
Yeah, I think we tackled some point previously on this question, and I do believe that first I recognize that we have certain types of problems in our academic life, and like normally myself, I have certain types of ways to treat certain so-called like work-life balance, all those barriers. So I read the book and I recognize that they apply certain types of 3R like policies to dealing with certain types of items. And the 3R means the recognize, reduce, and redistribution. So I feel that redistribute. I feel that those policies can apply to us when we're dealing with such types of difficulties. So normally we need to recognize the entire challenges in our career and in different types of stage of our life. And, for the reduce or reduction, so we can use multiple ways. So don't hesitate to ask for help. To ask for support from all the families, friends, and colleagues, and the entire system. We'll try to seek all types of support to reduce your own anxiety or whatever. To try to identify the most important part of your life and focus on that part, and reduce some other kind of not very important part. And for the redistribution is always we can communicate within the system, like within family and outside family in the career. So we can try to distribute the workload, like through multiple communications, effective communications, and eventually we can achieve kind of a comfort level for ourselves to keep the motivation at the same time, not overwhelmed by the system. Yeah.
We don't have much time, and yeah, I'll get back to you, Claire. I don't have much time, and I want to make sure that there were some very interesting questions that we did not have the time to address. One of them was really funny because they were asking you how AI could help pollution or climate change. So that could have done a good conversation, and we could spend an hour trying to find. I think we're going to follow up on this one. But I just want to give you the opportunity, Helen and Irina, maybe to have a last your thoughts. Share a last thought before we close the session. Irina?
Just to reiterate what we discussed before, I think it is very important to start early, encouraging girls to at least explore exciting aspects of STEM fields and careers. So they may or may not decide to go particularly in math or computer science. They may decide to be writers or artists, but the early exposure in childhood, then later on in high school and so on, I think is crucial. And that's one thing that I think is something that we should work towards and try to organize more activities like that. And the second thing, as I also mentioned, what I was trying to suggest to my daughter and more generally to anyone, I think you really need to focus on making sure that you find a good network of mentors and friends who can support you, and don't be afraid to ask for help. And that, I think that's essential, especially for international students and women in science in general, like if you start feeling isolated. And if you reach out and communicate better, then it really will make you stronger and will help you stay focused on your goals. So you don't have to do it alone. That's what I'm trying to say.
Thank you.
And Helen?
Thank you. Today is the International Day for Women and Girls in Science Day. For those girls and women who love STEM, but hesitate because of your gender, and for the educators like us, or anyone who has the opportunities or resources, I want to say let's work together on today and every day. So though there are challenges on the way, I believe there's hope for a better day, a better system, and a better us. And once again, I would like to give a big thank you to CFI and SSHRC. Thanks for organizing this great event. I am truly honored to have the opportunity to be part of the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you so much too.
Yeah, that's all the time that we have, unfortunately. And for the people that were listening, you can visit Canada's virtual exhibit, which is called the Exchange section of the AAA website. So there are a few information about the funding programs we mentioned today, but also the recording of this session is going to be available in the coming days, obviously not immediately. And we will also send a link to all the participants to the recording of this session if they want to listen to it again or share it. So thank you so much for being there. And I'll leave the closing remarks to Claire at this point.
Yes, thank you everyone who joined us today. And of course, a special thank you to our two guests, Dr. Helen Zhang from Memorial University and Dr. Irina Rish from the Université de Montréal. On behalf of CFI and SSHRC, thank you for your participation. And to everyone, thank you and have a great afternoon.
Thank you. It was great having that conversation.
Thank you so much.
Looking forward to see you again.